We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
One Grave at a Time is the 6th book in the Night Huntress series, and who can be tired of Cat and Bones? For 5 books now, Frost has not failed to deliver a great cast of characters with an entertaining story as the cherry on top, and One Grave at a Time is no different. We've gotten to know Vampire's 29-year-old Cat and her English husband, lover, and friend, 2-century-old Bones very well in these last few books. We've gotten to witness them fight for the greater good while still falling deeper and deeper in love. Bones taught Cat how to accept herself and how to accept that vampirism isn't synonymous with evil. We watch as their bonds solidify over time, but we know well not to expect their life to be mundane in any way. At the end of the last book, This Side of the Grave, Cat and her friends defeated a dangerously zealous foe, and she came face to face with the ghost of her recently deceased uncle, Don Williams. Don used to be the head of a secret government organization, a covert branch of Homeland Security who protected humans against rogue vampires and ghouls who posed a mortal threat. Cat met Don when she was a human-vampire hybrid. Maximilian, a vampire who at the time of Cat's conception was recently turned and was still producing reproductive cells, was Don's brother. She did not know this until Bones spilled the tea 4 years later. 4 years after Cat left Bones to go into hiding and work for Don, thinking that she was protecting him. But Bones found her, and in a strange way, it all worked out. Cat and Bones had each other back, and all was right in the world. They even got married and became parents to Helsing the cat, and they blended what was left of their entire family. Cat, her mother, Don, Bones, Fabian the ghost, and her team, Tate, Dave, Juan, and Cooper, well, technically, her ex-team, since she hasn't been working for the government for a couple years now. They were all close. So, as you can imagine, Cat was hurt, grieving for her uncle. Over the years, she has come to love Don very much, but that didn't mean that she didn't want her uncle to cross over. When he had been dying of his cancer, he refused for Cat or anyone to turn him, which would probably have cured him. He wanted to die in peace. He wanted to be cremated and move on with his afterlife. Little did he know, little did anyone know, that fate had other things in store for him. Cat spent a lot of time, it seems, trying to find information or tips to help Don move on or cross over to wherever he was supposed to go. But like her good old friend Fabian Dubrock, Don was not going anywhere, and he was not happy about it. At first, Don seems as though figuring out a solution to his ghostly problem is the main priority, until Madigan, who seems to have a disdain for Cat and her kind, comes along and demotes Tate, who was supposed to be Don's successor of the operation. Madigan becomes the new supervisor of the entire division and proceeds like a Tasmanian devil, doing all kinds of changes to her uncle's operation. Don is a ghost, and humans cannot see him. And knowing Madigan from when he was alive, Don thinks his presence here is very suspicious. So, Don begins to follow him to gain information and to determine if he has a sinister reason for being here. Madigan does prove to be in pain in the neck for Cat, because not only did he interfere in Cat's mission, causing unnecessary casualties, but he caused their initial plan to fail, causing more lives to be in danger. We never find out what Madigan wants really, at least not yet. Another effect of Madigan's presence, Cat's mother, Justina, quitting. Justina began to work for Don after she was turned against her will by an old foe, Gregor. Not only was she turned, but the man, or ghoul I should say, that she found love with was decapitated, the only known way to permanently finish a ghoul. If you could remember way back when, Justina hated vampires, resented them. Justina could not stand the sight of them. She could not even bear to look at Cat as she grew up without having resentment in her gaze. For her, to be turned into the thing she hated most was hard for Justina. She joined Don's team to fight what she hated the most and avenge the lives that she could not save. But with Madigan being openly hostile to Kat, Jeaniene had no choice. She had to leave. She was now with Kat and Bones, which gave them the opportunity to learn that Jeaniene is not adjusting to life as a vampire as well as they thought. They even find that she has stopped feeding and has been trying to sustain herself by sucking animal juices from meat packages. They are able to help her see reason and convince her to feed for now, at least for the safety of the humans around her. Uncontrollable hunger being so hard to manage would be hard for a new vampire like Jeaniene. But I think that any human with Jeaniene's history would struggle if turned into a vampire, so I don't think this problem will just go away. Kat doesn't have too much time to obsess over her mother's eating habits, however, because there is a new big bad in town, and he is nothing like any we've seen before. With Kat still wielding some of Marie Laveau's magic, it's no wonder that we would meet a ghost who would be a fierce contender for our girl Kat and her friends. Heinrich Kramer, the author of Malleus Maleficarum, or Hammer of the Witches, had 3 goals in life and death: to brutalize women physically and violently, to brand them witches, and to burn them at the stake. His book even inspired many centuries' worth of witch hunts. I will make this important note here. While in the story, Frost refers to Heinrich Kramer as the sole author of the book Malleus Maleficarum, in all actuality, there are 2 authors to this book: the real-life Heinrich Kramer and the equally real Jacob Springer. Springer's contribution to the book is suggested by some scholars to be more ceremonial than authorial, which is why I'm guessing Frost leaves him out. It simplifies things a bit. Long ago, Elizabeth, a powerful ghost, thought that by spooking Kramer's horse and causing his neck to break, that would stop him. But it did not. In death, as a ghost, he continues to do his evil deeds. And on every October 31st, every All Hallows Eve, each Samhain, when the barrier between worlds is the thinnest, he materializes. Using his ability to interact with matter, he took 3 women to exact confessions of witchcraft from them before burning them at the stake. Much like before he died, he would extract confessions through torture. Even if they confessed before the torture, he would torture them anyway for confirmation. And if they managed not to confess at all despite the torture, they were to be burned regardless, because that was proof that they were unrepentant. Kramer considered women responsible for everything, from impotence to failed crops, inherently evil and slutty in nature. Elizabeth was one of his victims in 1489. She was a 27-year-old midwife who was accused of witchcraft when she spoke up for a woman who was accused of deliberately strangling her baby with its own umbilical cord. Elizabeth became powerful in the afterlife, feeding on her anger to stop Kramer in his tracks. She became powerful enough to scare his horse and cause his death. But it seems as though, since Kramer has crossed over, Elizabeth is not strong enough to stop him. This is why she came to Kat. She alone cannot stop Kramer. He has evaded punishment for his crimes on every side of the grave, and it was time for him to be stopped. If you can remember, Kat is not like normal vampires. She does not get her sustenance from human blood. She feeds on vampire blood and absorbs whatever ability the vampire she drank from had. For example, drinking from Bones gave Kat telepathy. Drinking from Vlad Tepesh gave her the ability to wield flames. And apparently, the same applied to drinking from ghouls, because when she drank Marie's blood at Marie's behest, she gained power over ghosts and remnants alike, calling ghosts with her tears and calling the remnants with her blood. But although Kat can still access grave magic, she drank Marie's blood quite a while ago. Her connection to it was beginning to fade. This made it harder for her allies, Fabian, Don, and Elizabeth, to find her. And it also meant that she is not able to use the remnants against Kramer. Needless to say, stopping Kramer would not be easy. Kat even considered going back to see Marie Laveau for some help, but Bones advises against this. Remember, it is yet to be determined if Marie is ultimately friend or foe, and since practicing black magic was against vampire law, it would be best to put Kat's access to that kind of power behind them, and just let it fade out of her system as it were, or risk being sentenced to death by vampire lore guardians if anyone were to find out. To help them against Kramer, Kat and Bones enlist the help of ghost chasers, a team of investigators who go around searching for proof of the existence of ghosts. Imagine their surprise when they learn of the existence of vampires. The team of ghost hunters prove to be useful in some way. They give Kat and Bones a formula, a blueprint of sorts to trap ghosts. It is their initial design of limestone, moissanite, running water, and quartz that our heroes use in the end. Kat and Bones also enlist the help of a spicy psychic, Tyler, who proves to be a good friend, despite his compulsive need to hit on Bones, Spade, or Ian whenever the opportunity arises. Tyler, a flower shop owner, joins the gang as they travel and search for ways to find and finish Kramer. He is a true psychic and provides a lot of comedic relief in this book. With his smart comments and funny reactions to this new supernatural world that he has been introduced to, I mean, who would be mad at someone who wears Dolce & Gabbana underground? He travels not only with Kat and Bones, but with Spade, Denise, and Ian from the Blue Ridge Mountains to St. Louis to Sioux City. They seek him out initially with Spade's help so that they can make contact with Kramer. After using a Ouija board to open a door to the other side, Kramer comes out guns blazing and they underestimate him. In that first meeting, he was able to gravely wound Tyler with the Ouija planchette. Tyler's dog Dexter is also wounded. But to top it all off, Kramer got away, despite Kat trying to use what was left of her grave magic against him. Unfortunately, this puts Kat on his radar, and although Kat doesn't know it yet, he now has eyes on her as one of the 3 women that he will burn at the stake on October 31st. He follows her around consistently, and he tries to get under her skin and torment her. Kat can withstand this, but the other women who he has handpicked cannot. Although Kramer is powerful and can interact with matter, he cannot materialize fully until October 31st. So until then, he torments the women he picks, tearing apart their clothes, their homes, making them teeter on the edge of insanity while he bides his time. Fear strengthens him, and over the centuries, his strength has only grown. Each time he burns someone at the stake, it provides him with a feast of terror that strengthens him more than we can imagine. Soon, he won't be limited to walking the earth only on Samhain, but whenever he chooses. To reach his goal, though, he does not do it alone. Every year, he enlists the help of someone, a human who believes his teachings and shares his beliefs, to subdue the woman until he can fully materialize on his own and finish the wicked deeds. Working together, Kat and her friends are able to push back against Kramer and find 2 of the women, Francine and Lisa, before Kramer and his accomplice can detain them. Unfortunately for Kat and her friends, because they do not know she is Kramer's intended 3rd victim, they mistake this accomplice, Sarah, as one of his victims. This gives Sarah access to Francine and Lisa. Not only does she have access, but she now has the opportunity to subdue them and bring them to Kramer. On October 31st, Kat has no choice but to surrender herself, alone, to Kramer at a secret location in hopes of saving Lisa and Francine. Kat is tied up at the stake with the 2 women, and Sarah, who is now sporting a broken foot courtesy of Kat, is no longer needed by the fully formed Kramer, and she is horrified when Kramer turns on her. Whatever facade he puts up to get Sarah to work with him initially was now down, and she was now subjugated to the same brutality as the other 3 women, which doesn't surprise me, seeing as though he seems to have a pure hatred for women. Kat, with a silver blade dangerously close to her heart, needs her friends to find her fast if they had any chance of getting Francine and Lisa away from Kramer and to safety. She dug deep within her. She found a tiny piece of that magic that still lived within her. That grave magic, that mumble magic, that regardless of how small was all that Kat needed to call Elizabeth and Fabian, who in turn led the rest of her friends there. Before Kat can stop Kramer though, he set her on fire, burning her nearly to a crisp. If she couldn't regenerate, she would surely have been finished. But she could, and although she was bald and entirely hairless, she was happy to be alive. Sarah dies that night, but Francine and Lisa were safe. Kramer, being fully formed, could not run away when subdued by Kat, her friends, and their tasers. They locked him away in their stone mineral trap made of limestone, moissanite, and quartz, which they kept in an old sewage facility owned by Bones and his co-ruler, Mencaries. Once in the trap, they did a more thorough job of reinforcing the sewer wall and the base of the trap, only to ensure that time and erosion would not affect this makeshift prison. This facility is permanently closed off to the public, and at the end of this book, it remains guarded by Elizabeth and Fabian, who is absolutely smitten with her.